Yes guys, it's that time of the year, the Premier League, after a long summer away, or at least that's how it feels. It's finally back. It kicks off tomorrow with Friday Night Football, and what does that mean? It means there's no better time than for a special edition of City Talk, because today we're going to be talking Premier League predictions. Yes guys, the predictions are something that I love doing every single year. I've done them for the last 2 or 3 years on this channel now, and I always seem to get it dramatically wrong, but nevertheless it's a video I always enjoy making. Love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'm sure there's going to be loads of you that I'm going to upset, loads of you that I'm going to offend, but be sure to let me know in the comment section down below how much of this you agree with me and what your predictions are for the 17-18 season. We're going to be going through the entire table from bottom to top, so we're going to be kicking things off with the teams that I think are going to get relegated. Sorry to those teams, but someone's got to go down. So yeah, like I said, just let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts. Let me know who you think is going to get top 4 and bottom 3 especially. But without any further ado, we're going to kick things off with numbers 20 to 18. So bottom of the pile in 20th position, propping up my Premier League predictions, I've gone for Huddersfield. Just above them, Swansea City, and then just about going down in that 18th position, usually the most painful one if it goes down to the final day, I've gone for Brighton and Hove Albion. 2 teams there that have come up from the Championship last season. I'm going to touch upon most of the teams that we go through in the Premier League, obviously, and then talk a bit more in depth about the more critical positions, aka the top 4 and these bottom 3 teams here. But Huddersfield, I think you've seen in the City Talk videos with rivals, a lot of people have backed them and Brighton to go down. Obviously 2 teams new to the division, and personally I don't think Huddersfield have strengthened anywhere near enough to cope with the stresses of the Premier League. They've only made a couple of signings really. I've got them written down in front of me here on this scrap of paper, some notes, so I don't forget any major signings. But the only 2 players that they've really bought in Huddersfield are Aaron Moy, who they've obviously bought in from my team, Manchester City, who was playing for them in the Championship last year, and Tom Ince, another player that's been pretty good in the Championships throughout his career, but never really stepped up, or had the chance to step up, I should say, in the Premier League. So, in my opinion, when you're talking about staying in the league, you want experience, and that is something that I think Huddersfield are really lacking, as well as that little bit of quality as well. Looking just above them, Swansea City, a team that have been battling against relegation bravely over the last couple of years. I think this year is going to be the year they finally get sucked into that drop zone, and I think a main part of this is Gylfi Sigurdsson. I think if Gylfi Sigurdsson does leave, then 100% Swansea will be getting relegated. But if they do keep him, that is a major plus for them. And I think if he stays, that could, like, if they stay up, he could well be the reason. Again, they've made a couple of decent signings. The main one that I've noted down here is Tammy Abraham. He's a player with a lot of potential. They've loaned him in from Chelsea. Had a great season in the Championship last year, and I think he's a young talent that could have a good season potentially. And I think he's another one of those, like Sigurdsson. If he performs, maybe that could be enough to keep them up, but I still think they're going to go down. And Brighton just above them, similar story to Huddersfield really. They played some really attractive football in the Championship last season, but that's not necessarily the way to keep yourself in the Premier League. Signings wise for Brighton, I've got noted down Proper from Ajax, I believe it was, and also I've noted down Knockout, who's a player that they've had last season obviously, but is someone that I think needs to be performing at his best if they do have any hopes of staying up. They are of course the team at City have got first game of the season away from home, and I think it's going to be a tough game, their first game in the league at home, a place where they need to make an absolute fortress, similar to how Burnley did last season if they've got any hopes of staying up. But still, in my opinion, Brighton are going down alongside Huddersfield and Swansea City. So now we're going to be revealing that sort of lower mid-table section of the Premier League. That's going from position 17th to 13th. The positions that I think are very difficult to call. I mean, the whole league's difficult to call obviously, but any of these teams could be in any order in my opinion. I've actually gone for Watford to be the team that just about stay up in the Premier League, putting them in 17th position. I've actually announced today the signing of Andre Gray, which I think is a very decent one. I think he could be another reason that just about, he'll be one of those that just about keeps them in the Premier League this season. They've also managed to bring in Will Hughes and Nathaniel Chalobah. I think it's Nathaniel Chalobah from Chelsea on loan, as well as Will Hughes from Derby two very promising young English players. So I think when you look at the signings they've made, they've probably improved their team just slightly, and I think that will be enough to keep them up. They've not really lost anyone major either, which is a big plus for Watford. Above them, I've gone for Newcastle United, a team alongside Huddersfield and Brighton came up from the Championship last year, and they're a team that haven't really signed anyone at all yet, but I still think they've got a lot more quality in their teams than a lot more than Brighton and Huddersfield. I've got, looking at my piece of paper here again, I've got noted down that they bought in Christian Atsu, a player that they had on loan from Chelsea last season. He's moved on a permanent, and also Jacob Murphy, someone that bought in from Norwich. Similar story to when I was talking about, I think it was Brighton. They've not really bought in players that are noted for Premier League quality. They bought in Championship players that performed at that level, but can they cut it in the Premier League? It's going to be a very, very big season for Newcastle. It would be travesty for them to go straight back down. A very big club in the country, of course, in England, but that doesn't mean you're going to stay up. But I think they have got just about enough. I think it's going to be very close, but I've also got Newcastle to avoid that drop. Above them, we've got Burnley, and I actually did this today. Well, I put this league table together yesterday. Today, I've just mentioned it talking about Watford. They have lost Andre Gray. He's, of course, as I just said, gone to Watford. But I still think they'll stay up. I think they've got enough about them, and I don't think they've got the most quality team in the league by any stretch of the imagination. They're probably one of the weaker teams in the league, in fact, on paper. However, their home form last season was absolutely sensational. Turf Moor is a fortress, and I think they're going to be looking at that again to get them the points to keep them in the Premier League. I think if you ask a Burnley fan, staying in the Premier League again will be the objective, and I think with their home record, if they can repeat that again, which I think they probably will, that will be enough to keep them in the league. Above them, I've gone for Bournemouth, sitting in 14th position. I think they've actually had a very, very good season in terms of transfers, supporting Jermaine Defoe. That I think is a very nice transfer. Begovic from Chelsea, also a very nice deal. Nathan Ake, a player with a lot of potential that can do bits. And also, Max Gradel coming back from injury. Missed a lot of last season after that terrible injury he had right at the start of the year it was. I think will be like having a new signing for Bournemouth. I don't think they're going to be particularly making waves at the top end of the table, but I do think they've got enough quality there to be in a safe mid-table position. I put them in 14th, but I don't think they'll particularly be involved in a relegation scrap. I think they'll be in that comfortable position where they're not really threatening to get into Europe or the top half of the table, but they're also comfortable and not going to be worrying too much about relegation either. And then above them, I've gone for their coastal rival Southampton, a team that they always seem to lose the best players, but always seem to come back just as strong the next year. And I think it's going to be a big deal for them as to whether they can keep Virgil van Dijk, a player that's been linked all over the shop. The centre-back had a great season for them last year. It was a very big part of their defence, if not the main part. But even if they do lose him, I still think they're going to have enough in that squad to keep them comfortable in the Premier League. Again, similar to Bournemouth, I don't think they're going to be in relegation scrap, but I don't think they're really going to be challenging for that top half either. I think Gabbiadini needs to have a big season for them, a player that showed flashes of absolute brilliance last season when they brought him in. And I also think James Ward-Prowse is a player with a ton of potential that I think could really, really step up to the plate for Southampton next season, and perhaps even put in a late shout to get into that England main team for the World Cup next year. So now looking at the rest of the mid-table and top half positions in the Premier League, going from 12th to 7th. In 12th position, I've got Crystal Palace. A team, again, I think are going to be relatively comfortable, and that's mainly due to the fact of Christian Benteke playing for them. He's a fantastic striker, guarantees goals, particularly as I think the team's very much tailored around him. He's always going to get those 15, 20 goals, I think, across a calendar season in all competitions, and that's why I think they're going to be comfortable. Signings-wise, they've bought in the Riedveld, I think is how you pronounce it, from Ajax, a player that's meant to have a lot of potential, a very exciting young prospect at centre-half, I believe he is, but whether he's going to settle in straight away, time will only tell. And also Ruben Loftus-Cheek, another player with a lot of potential, got him on loan from Chelsea for the season. Fantastic looking central midfielder, and it's going to be interesting if he plays week in, week out to see how he develops as a player, because I think he's one of those that a lot of people are very, very excited about. Just above Crystal Palace, we've got the very, very unfashionable West Brom, a team that I think everybody always looks at and thinks they can get sucked into that relegation zone. They're not a particularly thrilling team to watch, but Tony Pulis is in charge, and Tony Pulis knows how to keep a team up. He knows how to play the Premier League, and again this season I think they're going to be relatively comfortable, perhaps challenging a little bit for that top 4 position. And yeah, I just think they've got enough about them once again. I think when you look at the players they've brought in, they've got Jay Rodriguez, who they've signed from Southampton, is a player that's always undoubtedly had a lot of talent, but someone that has suffered a lot from injuries over the last couple of seasons. If they can keep him fit, he'll be a very nice new signing for them. But I still think, again, even regardless of that, they've got enough in their team. The likes of Solomon Rondon, I think, is a great striker. They always seem to get a lot of goals from set pieces as well. They are just a solid team They know how to defend and how to grind out results, and for that reason, again, I think they're going to be super secure in the league this season. So slap bang in the middle of the table, 10th position, I've actually gone for Leicester City, the team that, of course, won the Premier League incredibly a couple of years ago. I think the bought in Shakespeare after Ranieri got shockingly dismissed, really, and he's done a decent job. And I think when you look at the fact that last season they had to balance out Champions League for much of the campaign, I think without that this year holding them back a little bit, they will be a lot more comfortable than ever the previous season, where with Ranieri, of course, they really look like they could be in a lot of trouble. They bought in Kelechi Iheanacho, of course, from Man City, a player that's definitely got goals in him. And I think when you just look at their goal force in general, their strike force, Mahrez is a fantastic player. If they keep hold of him, that'll be a big plus for them, of course. You've got Slimani, who's definitely got ability to score goals, as well as Vardy, and now Iheanacho. They have got goals in that team, and as long as they can keep themselves relatively solid at the back, which I think they definitely can do, there is no reason for them not to be a comfortable mid-table team. Once again, I think keeping Mahrez is going to be a big deal, and not having the Champions League holding them down as well could be a massive positive for Leicester this season. So in 9th place, the first team officially in the top half of the table, I've gone for Stoke City, a team that have actually lost one of their main players last season, Marko Arnautovic, but they have actually managed to bring in Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, a player that I think is very similar in the way that he's moulded as a player. He plays on that left-hand side like Arnautovic. He's very tall for a winger like Arnautovic. He's got 4-star skills on FIFA. You know, that's got to be something, hasn't it? Like Arnautovic. And I think that would seem to be a pound-to-pound, a decent replacement. Of course, he's unproven in the league, and Arnautovic was one of their main players, but still, I think they managed to cope without him. They've also bought in Kurt Zouma on loan from Chelsea, who I think is a very astute signing, a very good player in my eyes. Great centre-back. A big future ahead of him, I should say, sorry, and I think he'll do very well there as well. Like I said, they've got enough about them to be top half. Shaqiri is a fantastic player. I think Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting could suit the league very nicely, and like I say, very similar to West Brom. They're just a very solid team, but unlike West Brom, they've got that little bit of flair and a little bit of magic in the squad that I think could potentially again push them into that top half of the league. So in 8th place, just above Stoke, I put Everton, and I think this is going to be a slightly controversial one, because I think a lot of people think they're going to come quite high up in this league's Premier League. I think that a lot of people reckoning they're going to be challenging for those Europa League, some even saying Champions League positions, but despite the fact they've had a lot of signings, I think that could also hold them back a little bit. They've got European football, of course, right now. They're qualifying in the Europa League, and they've not looked particularly convincing there so far. That is something that you have got to bear in mind with them as well. If they do qualify for the Europa League, that's going to be a big burden on their season. And I think as well as the fact that they've bought in these players, they've got to gel. I think they've made some great signings. Rooney coming back into the team, of course. Klaassen coming across, Michael Keane and Pickford, great signings. But the other thing that really concerns me with Everton, after losing Romelu Lukaku, which is of course a huge deal for Everton, that's a lot of their goals gone. Where are the goals going to come from? I don't see a fantastic striker in their ranks, and that is something that I do think could stop them getting that sort of 5th, 6th position. I think they're going to be very comfortable top half of the table, but I don't think they're going to be performing up to those sort of top 4 levels that a lot of people are tipping them for. And the last team in this little section that we're going to be looking at is West Ham, a team that in my opinion have strengthened fantastically well. I think Joe Hart is going to do reasonably well there. I think he's a decent keeper. Of course, see him a lot at City, and I think it's the kind of club that suits him, a club that thrives on passion, and that's something that I think Joe Hart and the fans will get a lot out of from that kind of player-fan relationship. I think the signing of Chicharito is absolutely outstanding. Javier Hernandez, a proven goal scorer wherever he's been, he's 100% going to get the game time, and I think he could easily chalk up at least 15 goals in the Premier League this season and be a main part of why I think West Ham are going to do so well. I think they have made a couple of other signings as well that I've got noted down here. Arnautovic from Stoke City, someone that we spoke about just from a Stoke point of view, I think is going to be another fantastic addition to West Ham. They've got no European football to worry about, which they did have last season, I believe, so they've got none of that weighing them down. They've got a fresh look at the Premier League. They've made some great signings, and I don't see why they can't go on and have a fantastic season, coming out sort of challenging for the Europa League spots kind of position. And I think they're definitely a dark horse and a team to watch out for next season, West Ham. So now looking at 6th and 5th in the Premier League table, we're revealing Liverpool and Tottenham, 2 teams that I just don't think, frankly, have strengthened enough to challenge again for that top 4. I think Tottenham, especially right now, are in a real position where they need to strengthen. They've got such an incredible team, but we'll talk about those a bit more in a second. Of course, these are 2 teams that will be wanting to get top 4 as a minimum, but obviously someone's always got to miss out. And I think concentrating on Liverpool first and foremost, they're a team that, especially if they lose Coutinho, have strengthened nowhere near enough, particularly at the back. They're obviously chasing Virgil van Dijk. If they get him, that will be a big plus for them, but especially if they lose Coutinho. It'll be a big ask for them to get top 4 again this season, in my opinion. Salah is definitely a good signing, but aside from him, I don't think they've really brought in any game changers. Again, I'm looking at my little piece of paper here. They brought in Dominic Solanke, they brought in Salah, and that is it really. I think Dominic Solanke's a player with a lot of potential. He's had a great pre-season as well, but is he a good enough striker to get them top 4 this season? Is he a player that they can rely on to make a difference in the big games? I'm not so sure, which is why I've gone for Liverpool in 6th and then Tottenham in 5th. It's difficult because for me, Tottenham are a team that have got the best centre-back in the league in Toby Alderweireld and the best striker in the league in Harry Kane, but they're just refusing to strengthen right now. I think now is the time. As a Tottenham fan, it must be so frustrating where they need to build around these players and really challenge for that league title, but as of recording this, they've signed absolutely nobody, and I think, of course, they've lost Kyle Walker to Man City. I think if they don't strengthen, it's going to be a season where they miss out on the top 4 purely because all the teams that are above them have strengthened and do look a better outfit than they did this time last season. So Tottenham need to strengthen, otherwise I definitely think they'll be missing out on that top 4, which would be a massive shame, because I think they're in a position where with a couple of great signings that could be challenging for the title, never mind top 4. And now we get to the bit that you're all really interested in, where we start to reveal the teams one by one, and you can see on the screen we've gone for Arsenal to get back and retain once again, well not retain because they didn't get it last season, but to get that 4th place trophy. And this is, again, I spoke about Spurs not strengthening. Arsenal have gone out and they have strengthened their team. Lacazette is a player they've been crying out for the last couple of years, in fact probably longer back than that, the last 3 or 4 years probably. They finally brought him in, and I think he's going to make a big difference to the way they play. You may have saw with when KB came on for City Talk in the last time out, he spoke about how that's going to really affect the way that Ozil's able to pull the strings, play the balls in behind because he's got someone quick to run onto them, and I completely agree with that. I think they've got an incredibly lucky, dangerous looking attack. The likes of Sanchez, if they manage to keep him, will be a massive positive for them. If they lose him, that might be enough for me to drop them out of the top 4 potentially. But as we record this, they've still got Sanchez, they've obviously got Lacazette, they've got Ozil, they've got an incredible attack, and I think as long as they can keep it solid enough at the back, I think Mustafi's a great centre-back, Koscielny as well, then they have got enough to get top 4. Again, no Europe could play a massive part, no Champions League. They have got Europa League, but I actually think they'll try and balance that out to make sure that it doesn't affect the Premier League campaign, because I think if they focus purely on the league, it's another one of those where as long as Lacazette hits the ground running, they could challenge for the title, but it's going to be a big season for Arsenal, and I think they're going to get back into that top 4. So in 3rd place, getting the bronze medal, if you like, I've gone for Chelsea to come there. Last season's champions, a team that I actually think have taken a bit of a step back from last season. They're going to lose Diego Costa. That looks like a certainty. He looks to have handed in a transfer request. They've replaced him, of course, already with Morata, but he's a player that I think is still pretty unproven. He's got a very good goal return, but the Premier League is a different animal, and Costa to Morata, if you're asking me, I'd rather have Costa in my team for next season. I think he's guaranteed to get more goals personally, I think. But even outside of that, they've lost Nemanja Matic and signed into a direct rival in Man United, and I think that is absolutely crazy. He's a player that played almost every single Premier League game for them last season, a big part in their success, in their solid base of midfield. And they brought in Bakayoko, again a player that's unproven in the Premier League. He had a good season last year with Monaco, but he has got a lot more athleticism, I would suspect, than Matic had. So maybe he's going to be similar to Kante. Maybe that's not what they need. Maybe they needed someone like Matic who's going to sit there a bit deeper. I don't really know. But if it was me, like I said, Matic was a very strange player to sell. Also brought in Rudiger at the back. Obviously, John Terry's gone out and he's gone to Aston Villa. He's another player that's come in with a lot of potential. Rudiger looked good for Germany when I've seen him play and comes with a decent reputation as well. But yeah, Chelsea in general, I think they're in that position where they've won the league. They need to strengthen more, and that is something that, if anything, they've taken steps back from last season, which is why I put them to drop down to 3rd position. And now, of course, there's only 2 teams left. You know who they are, Man United and Man City. What order are they coming in? It's obvious, isn't it, really, guys? Come on, I support Man City. I put Man United in 2nd. I do honestly believe that it's going to come down to the 2 Manchester clubs this season. I think they're the 2 teams that have strengthened the most. United, that we're going to touch on now, obviously bought in Romelu Lukaku for big money, but he's a player that I think will make a huge difference to them next season. They bought in Matic, who looks like he could also be a big signing. He knows the way Mourinho likes to play, and he's a great addition to their midfield, as well as also bringing in a young lad at the back. I've got his name written down, but I have actually forgotten him. What's his name? Lindelof. That's the one. They brought in Lindelof at the back as well. I don't know if he's going to be like a regular starter, but I think they've strengthened a lot. They've got Champions League football to look forward to as well, and I think United and City are going to be the 2 teams that challenge for that title. I think if they can keep De Gea as well, United, which it looks like they're going to do on all accounts really, there's no massive rumours about him leaving. There is also a massive plus. But yeah, United are a team that have strengthened a lot. And like I say, in my opinion, between City and United next year. But that does, of course, mean that I've predicted my own team, Manchester City, to win the league. I've always got to have faith in the boys. I think we're a lot stronger than we were this time last year. And from pre-season, which you can't read too much into, of course, we have been looking very, very tidy. We've made some great signings. I think when you look where we needed strengthening was particularly in the fullbacks positions. And we brought in Mendy, we've brought in Kyle Walker, we've brought in Danilo, we've made some great signings. Bernardo Silva as well, another player that we've brought in. I think Jesus could have a big season for City as well next year. This time, of course, here for the entirety of the year, but it's going to be really interesting to see how the team gels together. That's the only thing that I think could be a bigger issue. Of course, one of the reasons that we didn't challenge last season so much was our vulnerabilities. Was our vulnerability at the back. That was a big negative for us last season. But Bravo, who was shocking, obviously has now been replaced by Edison, a player that's looked very nice, in pre-season. And also, of course, the full-back positions that have been massively strengthened as well. I've mentioned it before, I would like us to bring in another centre-back in case Company gets injured again. But right now, he's looking pretty fit, so fingers crossed that can stay the case. And as long as he does, as long as the players gel relatively well, I think we've got so much firepower in the team that I have got us to win the Premier League next season. Fingers crossed, from our point of view, that is exactly what can happen. But that is going to end up the predictions, lads. I'd love to hear what you thought in the comment section down below. If you agree with me, obviously no one's going to be completely in agreement with what I've said, I wouldn't imagine. But let me know what your thoughts are in that comment section down below. I hope you all enjoy your weekend and the Premier League football that is, of course, finally upon us as well. But yeah, I'll catch you all next time, lads. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Nidge out.